You ever get that feeling that someone's watching you? Not when you see someone, not that kind of fear. I mean that quiet, crawling unease that creeps up your spine. The sense that there's something just behind you. Something that breathes when you breathe. That watches when you turn out the lights. I've felt that for years now. And I know exactly when it started. It began the night Emily Barnes disappeared. Back then, I lived in a small town, the kind of place people call peaceful because they've never really looked at it after dark. A handful of streets, 2 gas stations, 1 school that closed every summer for budget cuts. The kind of town where everyone waves, but no one really knows each other. We believed bad things happened somewhere else. In cities, in movies, to other people. Not here. But evil doesn't send invitations. It doesn't wear a mask or knock politely. Sometimes it hides behind a smile, or behind the fence next door. I remember that night too clearly. Or maybe I've replayed it so many times that memory and guilt have blended together. The air was cool and damp, heavy with that autumn smell of wood smoke and wet leaves. The streetlights buzzed above cracked pavement, painting everything gold and strange. Emily was outside, bouncing a basketball in her driveway, earbuds in, ponytails swinging. I waved, just a casual neighborly gesture. She smiled back. It was small, fleeting, ordinary. That was the last time I saw her alive. Later, when I took out the trash, her porch light was still on. The house was quiet. Nothing seemed wrong. But as I turned to go back inside, I heard something. Faint, quick, like a sharp breath caught in the air. I froze. Listened. Nothing. I told myself it was an animal or the wind moving through the trees. But something inside me shifted. That strange coldness you can't explain. It felt like the night was holding its breath. By morning, the whole street knew. Emily hadn't come home. Her mother called the police just after 1 a.m. They came fast, too fast for it to be a false alarm. Blue lights flickered across the lawns, doors opened, neighbors gathered in coats and slippers. The officers moved quietly, knocking, writing, asking questions. They searched garages, sheds, alleys. By dawn, there were dogs in the woods behind our houses, their collars flashing in the dark. At first, I thought it was just panic, a misunderstanding. Teenagers run off all the time, don't they? Maybe she'd stayed over at a friend's. Maybe she needed to clear her head. But by the second night, that hope felt thin, too quiet, too clean. By the end of the week, her photo was everywhere, taped to lampposts, pinned to the grocery store door. Missing. Last seen October 7th, 10:15 p.m. Her smile stared out from every wall, frozen in time. The police went through the motions. Friends, teachers, classmates, neighbors. I said I hadn't seen anything unusual. That wasn't exactly true. 3 nights before she vanished, I heard shouting from the Barnes's porch, her mother's voice, sharp, desperate, Emily crying. I couldn't make out the words except for one sentence that still echoes in my mind. "You don't understand what he's like." Then a door slammed, and silence swallowed the rest. I almost told the police, but something stopped me. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was shame. Maybe I just didn't want to be part of whatever this was becoming. The investigation went nowhere. No sightings, no phone records. It was as if the earth itself had swallowed her. The town went quiet. The Barnes house stayed dark, except for one porch light that burned every night, waiting. A week later, a volunteer found a torn piece of fabric caught on a branch near the drainage ditch behind our neighborhood. Pale blue, stained with mud. Tess confirmed it belonged to the hoodie Emily was wearing that night. The ditch ran behind several properties, including one belonging to Daniel Price. Daniel lived directly across from me, mid-30s, worked nights at the plastics plant out by the highway, the kind of man who never drew attention, the kind who nodded politely, never smiled too wide. The police questioned him on day one. Standard procedure. He had an alibi. Clocked in at work at 10:02 p.m., clocked out at 6 m. His time card checked out. They thanked him and moved on. But there was something about him that didn't sit right. Not the way he talked, the way he didn't. The stillness, the way he'd stand on his porch watching, cigarette glowing faintly in the dark, like he was waiting for something to happen. After the fabric was found, they searched his house again. Nothing. No signs of struggle. No traces of blood. No foreign prints. Clean. Too clean. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling. And then, a month later, something strange happened. I came home from work one night and found a small plastic bag hanging from my doorknob. Inside was a cassette tape. No note, no name. I don't know why, but I felt sick before I even touched it. I didn't own a player anymore, so I borrowed one from my brother. I sat at my kitchen table, blinds closed, and pressed play. At first, nothing. Then static. Then breathing. Slow, uneven, close to the microphone, and then a voice. A girl's voice. "Please, if anyone finds this, I didn't go with him willingly." A hiss of static, then silence. I played it again, and again, 3 times. The voice, it sounded like Emily. The fear in it was real. The kind of fear that you can't fake. The next morning, I drove it straight to the station. Detective Harris took it from me with gloved hands. He looked older, thinner, as if this case had eaten months of his life. He said they'd send it for analysis. I asked if it was really her. He didn't answer, just thanked me and told me to get some rest. Weeks passed. Then months. No word. The flyers faded, the search parties stopped. Christmas lights went up, and the town pretended it was fine again. But the silence stayed. Then one night, it started raining. A slow, steady drizzle that turned the street into a mirror. I was standing by the window when I saw movement behind my house. A shape. Dark and heavy, slipping between the trees. I turned on the motion light. It flickered, then went out. When I stepped outside, the yard was empty, except for the footprints. Wet, deep, leading from the fence toward my door. I followed them until they disappeared into the grass. The air was still. The rain stopped. And for a moment, I thought I heard breathing, not mine, coming from somewhere close. I went back inside, locked every door. And that night, I didn't sleep at all. Every sound in the house felt magnified. The tick of the clock, the groan of old wood, the faint hum of the refrigerator. I sat by the window until the sky turned gray, waiting for something I couldn't name. When the sun came up, I walked outside. The footprints from the night before were gone, washed away by the rain, but the earth still looked disturbed, as if someone had stood there for a long time, watching. I told myself to stop, to move on, but I couldn't. In the weeks that followed, little things started happening. I'd come home to find my gate open, even though I was sure I'd locked it. My porch light would flicker at the exact same hour every night. Once, I found a single muddy handprint on the side of my trash bin. I started keeping notes, times, dates, details. It made me feel like I had some control. Like maybe, if I could understand the pattern, I could make sense of what was happening. The police never called about the tape. When I finally went back to ask, Detective Harris was gone. Transferred, they said. The new investigator, a woman named Keller, barely knew the case. She told me the tape had been misplaced during evidence storage. Misplaced. That word stuck with me. Around that time, Daniel Price stopped showing up at the factory. His car sat unmoved in the driveway for days, then weeks. The blinds stayed shut. No lights, no sound. People whispered that he'd left town, that the case had finally driven him away. But I knew he hadn't left. At night, his porch light would flicker on for exactly 10 minutes, then fade again, like someone testing it, making sure it still worked. One evening, curiosity won over fear. I walked across the street. The air felt colder there, like stepping into a different season. His yard was overgrown, the path slick with leaves. I knocked once. No answer. I should have left then. But I didn't. I walked around the side of the house, flashlight in hand. Behind the garage, half buried under a tarp, was a wooden box. Weathered, stained, heavy. There was a small padlock on it, rusted and weak. My hands were shaking when I broke it open. Inside were cassette tapes, dozens of them, each one marked only with a date. The most recent one was labeled October 7th. I didn't open the others. I didn't have to. The next morning, I called the police. They came, searched the house, took the box. I expected answers. Instead, I got silence. A week passed, then another. Finally, Keller called me back. Her voice was flat. She thanked me for reporting it and said the tapes were under review. When I asked what was on them, she paused too long before answering. There was nothing conclusive, she said, but we'll keep them on record. And that was it. No arrests, no closure, just another quiet night on our quiet street. Winter came. The Barnes family moved away. Daniel's house stayed empty. The grass grew high, the paint peeled. Eventually, the bank put up a for sale sign, but no one ever bought it. I thought that was the end of it. Until last week. I was cleaning out my attic when I found an old cardboard box marked Home Videos. Inside were a few dusty tapes from years ago. I almost threw them out, but one of them had no label. I don't remember recording it. When I played it, the screen filled with static. Then, the faint outline of my kitchen. My own voice, faint, humming something I couldn't place. The camera panned toward the back door. And there, reflected in the glass, was someone standing outside, still, watching. The frame jolted, like the camera was dropped, and the tape ended. Now, every night when I walk through my house, I turn on the lights first. I check the locks twice, and sometimes, when I pass by the window, I see a shape across the street. The house is still empty, the for sale sign leaning in the wind. But sometimes, just for a second, there's a light in the window and a shadow moving inside. I tell myself it's nothing, just my imagination, just this town, refusing to forget. But sometimes, when the night gets too quiet, I swear I can hear it again. That soft, steady thunk, thunk, like a basketball bouncing on concrete. And every time I do, that cold feeling crawls up my spine all over again. Because deep down, I know the truth. She never really left. Some stories never really end. They just fade, like echoes trapped in the walls of a house that refuses to forget. People still drive down that street sometimes. Most don't even know what happened there. They see the old for sale sign, the cracked driveway, the flickering porch light, and they keep going. But those who lived there, they remember. The Barnes family never came back. The police closed the file 3 years later. Officially, it's still listed as unsolved. But if you ask anyone who was there, they'll tell you something about that night never felt finished. Maybe the tapes were real. Maybe they weren't. Maybe Emily Barnes never left that town at all. And sometimes, when the wind moves just right and the streetlights hum the way they used to, it feels like she's still there, watching, waiting. So, if you ever find yourself walking home late at night and the air suddenly feels colder, if you catch yourself glancing over your shoulder, certain someone's there, don't ignore it, because every town has its secrets. And every story starts with the same feeling, that quiet, crawling sense that someone's standing just behind you. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to stay tuned for the next case file. Another small town, another mystery, another voice that refused to stay silent.